This is RTV6 News at 5:30, working for you.
And now at 5:30, an extra $600 a week. Many Hoosiers have been receiving that as part of unemployment aid from the federal government. But it's due to end soon. How to financially prepare for the big change.
Getting ready for a new school year. How the Franklin Community School Corporation plans to welcome back thousands of students and teachers. Their plan coming up on RTV6.
Here's what we're talking about today in our lineup. Airlines continue to have different policies for middle seats amid this pandemic. We're getting a new picture of how great the risk really is. And we're looking at what could soon be a perfect storm of financial difficulty for millions of people. The steps you should be taking now to prepare as bills start to be due again. And the pandemic is making it more difficult to afford rent. The latest numbers on what it takes to be able to live comfortably.
And first at 5:30, the start of the school year in the age of coronavirus is just a few weeks away, and districts are scrambling to implement safety features in their buildings. RTV6's Rafael Sanchez shows us how Franklin Community Schools in Johnson County are preparing to welcome back more than 5,000 students on August 5th.
Here at Creekside Elementary School, this cafeteria setup will be a thing of the past. By the time students arrive, about 2/3 of these tables will be moved out, some to the gymnasium next door. Before COVID-19, it was not unheard of to have students sitting together in a table of 4. But things are now changing. Desks are now being separated to give students more room to learn. So in this classroom, as you can see, desks are now in a single file row, giving students more room to learn. Teachers will get a chance to sit behind a plastic shield like this one to protect them and their students when they sit around in small groups. Each classroom in the district will have a hand sanitizer just like this one. When it comes to hygiene, it's all hands on deck. For now, you can push and get a drink of water, but when school arrives, all of these water fountains will be shut down. The district instead has added one of these touchless water fountains to allow students to get a drink. The school system will allow teachers to branch out and hold classroom outdoors where possible, weather permitting. The school system is also taking a stand on extracurricular activities. You may see band and choir rehearsing outdoors.
Thank you, Rafael. And the district will be encouraging families to carpool or walk children to school when and where possible. The goal is to have 2 kids per seat on a school bus. Kevin.
Temperature's a little bit warmer today, but the humidity is still not bad. Beautiful view down in Monroe County, but it was a great day on Lake Monroe, any body of water within the state. As you look at temperatures and a view from Indianapolis looking to the north, you can see Bloomington's at 86 degrees right now, temperature in Greenwood at 84. This is kind of interesting. I don't know if you can see it, but if you look to the left, do you see the helicopter coming through? It just flew over or near where you can see the pyramids on the northwest side, all that glass kind of reflecting the sunlight, and you can see the 3 of them together. Winds out of the southwest starting to change the direction, which will change the feel in the air. A little bit warmer tonight. 66 for the overnight low in Indianapolis. During the day tomorrow, temperatures will be up to 82, respond to a south wind about 10 miles per hour. Afternoon high right at 90 with increasing clouds. Talk about the increasing chance of thunderstorms tomorrow night and the temperature trend which says summer, summer, summer. That's coming up in the next segment.
Dr. Anthony Fauci says he is confident that we can still get a handle on a surging number of COVID cases, but that may require taking some steps back when it comes to reopening.
You don't necessarily need to shut down again, but pull back a bit and then proceed in a very prudent way of observing the guidelines of going from step to step.
He says some of the spikes we're seeing now are in states that didn't take gradual steps coming out of lockdown. California is one of those states seeing this massive rise in cases. Los Angeles is now on the verge of a complete shutdown. And in Texas, Houston's mayor is proposing a 2-week shutdown.
I think it's important to reset. We have to slow down this virus. The only way we can reverse course is that we have to separate, and then we have to continue to put on our masks, engage in the social distancing.
Dr. Fauci agrees, saying those simple things can help us move forward. During this surge, more young people are getting infected. He says we need to convince them to think about others that may be more vulnerable.
So the best way to reopen the country and to get back to normal is to be very prudent in protecting yourself from getting infected. That's a difficult message when people don't take something seriously, but we've got to hammer that home.
Dr. Fauci is also planning community engagement efforts for workers to talk to people who are skeptical about the importance of vaccines once they're available. New York State is now cracking down on passengers coming from coronavirus hotspots. More than 20 states have been highlighted for their case surges, including Arizona, California, Florida, Kansas, and Ohio. Starting today, New York officials will make sure passengers coming from those states have filled out contact forms. Those passengers are required to quarantine for 2 weeks. The Federal Trade Commission is a group that warns people about scams, and now it's having to issue warnings about a scheme where someone is posing as the FTC. The agency says the scam email says that people are entitled to money from the Global Empowerment Fund. It then goes on to ask for sensitive details like bank account information. The FTC says it will never send an email like this. If you believe that you've fallen victim to this scam, visit ftc.gov/complaints. All right, next in our lineup, there's a debate over whether airlines need to leave those middle seats open to protect us from COVID-19. We're getting a new idea of just how great the risk really is.
The Federal CARES Act has been providing an extra $600 a week in unemployment benefits for some people, but it's set to expire in about 17 days. RTV6's Kelsey Anderson spoke with a financial advisor about the change and how you can prepare for it.
If you lost your job because of the pandemic and are currently on unemployment, I spoke to a financial advisor who says the first thing you want to do is start budgeting that money and making sure you're only paying for the necessities. John Amatuli of Amatuli & Associates Financial Services says pay your bills, but then save what you can. If you find you had more money than you thought left over, it doesn't necessarily mean you should pay off a chunk of credit card debt right now or splurge on an item. While that can be tempting, he says, we have to remember we're still in a pandemic and there is a lot of uncertainty around the job market for many people. Instead, he says it might be a good idea to try and hang on to that cash and put it in a savings account.
And I recommend to clients and the folks that try to have a 6-month emergency fund set up, because if things get bad again in the fall, there's money there to make expenses.
He says to remember, if you were hired for another job today, it still might be a week before you start and 3 weeks or more before you receive a paycheck. He says it's important to do what you can to make this extra money today last for when you need it later. I'm Kelsey Anderson, RTV6.
This week, JetBlue became the latest airline to say it will keep middle seats blocked longer. It will happen through September 8th. Delta and Southwest are blocking middle seats through the end of September, but other major airlines like United and American say they will be filling those seats. An MIT professor is laying out what your risk is of catching COVID if that middle seat is filled. Now, he looked at research on the transmission of the virus and the number of cases and assumed that, say, everybody wears a mask and the mask is 82% effective. Well, he found that 1 in 4,300, that is your risk of getting COVID on a full plane. It's 1 in 7,700 if the airline keeps the middle seats open.
The takeaway is there is a difference. I think that it is statistically safer if the middle seat is kept open. The difference is measurable and perceptible. And the question then is, well, if the risk is incredibly low, who cares whether it gets cut in half? Then the issue is, do people really think this level of risk is incredibly low? And individuals will have to make that judgment.
This is based on numbers from late June, so with more new cases, it's likely there is a greater chance now. Now, he doesn't agree with airline arguments that even if they don't fill the middle seat, passengers still won't be 6 feet away from each other.
They seem to say, look, if you're within 6 feet, it doesn't matter whether it's 1 foot or 5 feet, you're at the same level of risk. This bears no relationship to the literature or to physics. I mean, the closer you are, statistically, the greater is the risk.
Now, he's submitting research this week to be peer-reviewed, so looked at a little bit more, but he did want to make it available right now so we could have this information. Lawmakers, passengers, and flight crew unions have called on the FAA to set policies for containing the virus. The government says it's advising airlines, even though it's not passing any new regulations. Airlines for America, which represents the major carriers, says that mandates aren't necessary because airlines have already taken extraordinary measures. All right, ahead in the lineup, a lot of bills will soon be coming due at the same time for millions of people. What experts say you should focus on. It'll be a wake-up call for many Americans as moratoriums on foreclosures and some debt collection come to an end. Alicia Nieves talked with experts on how to manage and survive through what's coming next month.
The next few weeks mark the beginning of serious financial uncertainty for millions of people. A slew of debt, from income tax payments to several months of rent, are going to be due at the same time.
It is going to be a perfect storm of financial difficulty for many, many people.
Andrea Bob Stark, an attorney at the National Consumer Law Center, is trying to help people prepare and has 3 steps anyone can take. Step 1, sit down and create a list of top priority bills and debt to pay.
People are going to be barraged with debt collectors calling and trying to get them to pay on a medical debt or a credit card debt. But those debts are less important. Pay debts that, if you didn't pay them, would cause immediate harm to your family. So those are like, your rent and a car payment, especially if you need your car to go to work. If you have a judgment against you, try and make a payment plan to pay that, because a creditor could issue a garnishment against your wages.
Step 2 would be to contact your lenders to make a payment plan on those priority debts.
We're seeing data come in that there are people that are delinquent but don't have a forbearance agreement, when they could very easily be in a forbearance agreement. And I know wait times on the phone are horrible right now, but you have to be persistent.
Step 3, find a way to stick to your list.
It may sound obvious, but if you have it on paper and you have created a budget, stick that to the refrigerator or wherever. If your son or daughter says, oh, well, I want this or that. No, look at the fridge. These are our priority spending items. Sorry.
Because every situation may not be as easy as 1, 2, 3, the NCLC has now made its in-depth guide to surviving debt free at nclc.org. It has letters to send to debt collectors and hundreds of pages of help to get you through this tough time. I'm Alicia Nieves reporting.
As we get deeper into summer, Indy Parks announced today it's adding a little extra time for cooling off in its pools. 5 pools are open this summer: Bethel, Frederick Douglass, Perry, Riverside, and Willard Parks. Effective today, the first 2 swim sessions of the day will be 30 minutes longer, so 10 a.m. to 12:30 and 1:30 to 4. The final session is still 5 to 7. And on Friday, Indy Parks will kick off its free summer concert series at MLK Park with Clint Breeze and The Groove taking the stage at 7. Kevin.
Amanda, cooling off in the pool will become more difficult over the next several days because that water temperature is going to continue to warm. Overnight lows will stay in the mid to 70s. The Pagoda camera at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and temperatures at Speedway and the rest of central Indiana a little warmer today than yesterday at 85 in Indianapolis, but not much of a temperature range anywhere in the state from north to south and west to east. Temperatures about average for this time of year. Let's spin the wheel here. 91, that's our anticipated high tomorrow. That does come with a little more humidity. I think we hold off thunderstorms until after 7 o'clock in the western portion of the state. Thursday, most likely that we'll see morning thunderstorms, 87 for the high. That's the coolest day, by the way, in the 7-day planner. Temperature back to 91 on Friday. Chance of thunderstorms in the heat and humidity. That will be a familiar theme. Instead of a north-northeast wind, we flip the arrows, start coming out of the south during the day tomorrow. That will grab hold of a little more moisture from the Gulf of Mexico, and you start to notice the humidity. It will also be a building block for some thunderstorms tomorrow night. That wind will be around 10 to 15 miles per hour at times. 91, the afternoon high temperature on Wednesday. 7 o'clock, thunderstorms west of the state line. By 9 o'clock, approaching the state line, especially just west of Terre Haute and Sullivan, and then they continue to march from the east from there. This is the way we'll wake up Thursday morning with some showers around, and they'll be weakening overnight. We'll show you the trend of the next several days. I think you've got the idea of what that'll be. We'll do that coming up.
Let's turn to the news feed. Tulane University is trying to get students back safely. It's going to crack down on parties this fall. If a student has a gathering of 15 or more people, they could be suspended, even expelled. Big day tomorrow. It is tax day. The deadline for filing had been extended as a result of the pandemic. Experts say if you're using a paper return, you can expect a delay in getting that refund. Amazon's trying to make the shopping experience easier. It is now working on a smart cart. This cart would detect what you put in it, then charge you for it so you don't have to go through the checkout line. This would first be tested out at an LA area store. As the debate continues over whether it will be safe to return to school in the fall, some students are trying to stay engaged during the summer. For students with special needs, it can be especially challenging, but as Usher Qureshi found, learning new life skills is about overcoming those challenges.
Taking a slow breath.
From inside her home each morning,
our breath is constant.
Special education teacher Rebecca Josephek begins her class with meditation.
We try to find ones that energize us and get us started for the day, but it's important for them to center, to focus.
For the last 6 summers, she's worked on the extended year program for high school students with special needs.
We prepare most of these kids for a productive life after high school.
Good morning, Asha.
Normally, the summer class is hands-on, focused on life skill building like cooking and gardening.
This here, it's a tomatillo plant. If you guys remember, we went over veggies yesterday.
In-person instruction that's critical to these students' development. But this year, like so many things, it's almost completely online. And for the nearly 7 million students with special needs, it can be especially harrowing.
It's scary and it's hard with the kids because we've lost some kids, like they don't want to be on, or they're on and they just don't want to be present. Like they're just in the background.
15-year-old Cameron Bell, who has Down syndrome, has taken the virtual learning in stride.
I like it.
Hey, Cam.
For Cameron's mother, not having the in-person instruction means she has to take on a more active role.
Cam had an aide. He had a one-on-one aide when he was in school. So I took the place of the aide, I think, just kind of sitting next to him and making sure that he stayed on task and that they could understand him.
Are you guys ready?
No one knows what the long-term impact of distance learning will be on these students.
It's a challenge, and I think they're missing a lot. So they like that social interaction with each other and with us as teachers.
Educators say there will likely be significant regression, a phenomenon known as the summer slide. And the longer students are away from traditional classrooms, the more pronounced that regression could become.
Taking a slow breath.
It's why Josephek hopes remote learning will be long gone by next summer.
I hope. But we will continue this summer program, whether we're online or we are in person, because it's definitely a needed program for these students.
Ready?
Reporting from Broadview, Illinois, I'm Usher Qureshi.
Usher, thank you. Target is expanding its back-to-school discounts for teachers. This summer, the company is offering 15% off classroom supplies and essentials for 6 weeks. In past years, the promotion only lasted 1 week. Educators can now verify their eligibility on Target's website or app. The discounts start Sunday and can only be used once. Taking inspiration from social media, one man is giving back to a community. The Venmo Challenge asked for donations to surprise workers in the food industry. When Dan Pugh went on vacation to Virginia Beach, he posted his own challenge on TikTok. He racked up hundreds of dollars in his Venmo account in just a few days and gave it to a waitress. All the servers working got a piece of it.
We all tip share, so it kind of went to all of us, and they didn't even realize that was going to be the case either, so it was really awesome.
They had the means, and they decided to help, and that's all that anybody can ask for right now.
Pugh says it's not necessarily about the money, but spreading positivity when so many need it. Well, finally in our lineup, new numbers show just how much people need to make an hour to afford a one-bedroom apartment or a house, where experts are seeing growing disparities. Paying rent is increasingly a struggle. Tomorrow we're going to take a look at what's allowed a select few to talk down their monthly rent when they resign. For the rest of us, though, there is still bad news. With the pandemic and racial justice movement showing even more disparities in the long-time housing crisis, workers need to make almost $20 an hour. That's on average to afford a modest one-bedroom. It's about $24 an hour for a two-bedroom. This is according to a new report that's called Out of Reach by the National Low-Income Housing Coalition.
So if it was the case before that millions of low-wage workers were struggling to afford their rent, we anticipate that many more will be unable to now and may not be able to hold on to their homes.
It's not just a large metro area problem either. In almost every county nationwide, a full-time minimum wage job isn't enough to cover a one-bedroom apartment. And when it comes to disparities, the numbers tell the story. 44% of Black Americans and 42% of Latinx are rent burdened, meaning they spend more than 30% of their income on housing. Now, that's compared to 26% of white households. It's an issue that requires massive investments on multiple levels, both short and long term.
I think we've seen a lot of evidence, especially in recent years, research that shows how foundational housing is to our health, to our children's health, to their education, to their economic opportunities, and to our general well-being.
Emergency rental assistance needs about $100 billion to help people stay in homes now and prevent a wave of evictions. Pre-pandemic, 3 out of 4 people who qualified for housing assistance didn't get it. There are several pieces of legislation proposed to address the affordable housing crisis, and you can learn more about it right here at this website at the bottom of your screen.
And just like last evening, another beautiful evening in progress. Temperature in Kokomo, 81. Sunshine for all. Bloomington's at 87. With a click of a button here, you'll see what happens with the humidity. Watch it climb. Once it reaches kind of a tropical level, which it will stay there for the 7-day forecast. Very hot and humid stretch coming up. That's all for the news at 5:30. More news.